If you want to get a apartment or a condo to live by yourself, talk to your parents. If you have a lifestyle to your liking, go for it and make it happen.
I'm really excited to be here and represent the Kansas Council on Developmental Disabilities. We have a very unique mission. We work on statewide advocacy across the state of Kansas, every corner of this state, and we really are trying to drive legislative issues and challenges facing our community across the lifespan, everything from health to financial literacy to the IDD wait list, and then really looking at putting forth solutions to address the workforce crisis that we have in Kansas. We have one of our amazing, you probably heard from her earlier today, amazing council members, Casey Seitz, who's with us too, who also knows the financial world. Actually, Abel is really what brought us together through, it all comes full circle, through my best friend who happened to have Down syndrome and autism, Casey, who really grew up around DSI for many, many years. I started working with her as a direct support professional 22 years ago and used to take her to all of the DSI programming, proms, the walk, you name it. We went to the different advocacy or different events throughout the state together. Casey actually passed 3 years ago last Tuesday of COVID and pneumonia down the street at Advent. So really just remains the catalyst for why I do the work that I do. And I'm sure so many of you have similar stories and passions as to why you're here today and why you're involved in this amazing community. So I'm here to talk very quickly about ABLE accounts, and I'll preface it by saying we have a very intense, quick deep dive into ABLE accounts for the 30 minutes, and as soon as we wrap up, will be in the atrium in the lobby to answer all your questions as long as it takes if we don't get to any of those. I have worked on ABLE and the National ABLE Program and the ABLE Act, which was the legislation that helped get this law across the finish line since 2006. Like many of you, caregivers, moms, dads, and a number of our self-advocates that are here in this room, the ABLE Act was actually a kitchen table idea. It grew out of 5 parents, just like yourselves, very frustrated with this archaic, outdated system that so many of us navigate day in and day out. As my friend John Ariely was mowing the lawn and said, do you know that my son with Down syndrome can't have more than $2,000? And that chief of staff, not having a personal connection to our community, said, what do you mean he can only have $2,000? And she explained all about the means-tested programs and all about the benefits and SSI and Medicaid we have to navigate. So that kitchen table idea spurred the impetus for the final iteration of the ABLE Act, which passed and landed on President Obama's desk on December 19th, 2014. From the time we started working on the legislation to the time it got to Obama's desk, it took 8 years and 4 Congresses. But when we passed it, we actually had 381 out of 435 U.S. representatives, and we had 78 out of 100 U.S. senators, including our entire Kansas delegation and the entire Missouri delegation, because of advocates like you who helped make that possible, support this legislation. It's actually one of the most bipartisan bills that's ever passed in terms of national disability policy during our tenure, during the history of the country, and really is the most significant piece of civil rights legislation since the Americans with Disabilities Act of 1991.
I'm Sarah Wolf. I'm from Moscow, Pennsylvania. It's not Moscow, Russia. People with disabilities, Down syndrome, and other disabilities deserve to save money for their future, for college or medical needs, and ABLE is for that. I authored a Change.org petition calling for Congress to pass the ABLE Act. To date, it has over 260,000 signatures and counting. Of course, it's very intimidating to meet Congress. My mom used to lobby with me. She died in February. She is one of those champions of ABLE. I feel like I have a mission now. We now have 74 co-sponsors in the Senate and 366 co-sponsors in the House.
The U.S. House has overwhelmingly passed a bill which approves the most sweeping legislation to help the disabled since 1990.
With the passing of this bill, people with disabilities can now open tax-free savings accounts.
It will affect as many as 54 million people.
It was really, really cool to see all these people come together and support something that is very important for people with disability. I will be standing right next to President Obama when he signs the ABLE Act into law this year. All I gotta say is just keep changing the world. That's it.
So let me ask, that's a little bit about my friend Sarah. Sarah is from Pennsylvania, was a tremendous advocate that helped us get this across the finish line. She, at the time, I was running the National Down Syndrome Society. She was on our board of directors as a self-advocate and really developed a great relationship with Senator Bob Casey, who's now the senior senator of Pennsylvania, who played a pivotal role in helping us get it to President Obama's desk. So it's always nice to have that firsthand perspective. So let's start here. How many of you have an ABLE account? Okay, that's pretty good. How many of you have never heard about ABLE? Awesome, good. How many of you are from Kansas? Okay. Oh, yeah, thumbs up. I'm on the Kansas side too. We'll start that border war. Okay, and how many are from Missouri? Awesome, perfect. Well, when Sarah asked me to do this, I was gonna give you like a quick crash course because we passed ABLE at the federal level. And then December 20th rolled around and I was like, I'm done, I'm retiring. We got this thing passed. We didn't make this easy on ourselves, folks. We had to go state by state to introduce state ABLE laws because ABLE accounts, for the most part in the ABLE programs, had to be authorized out of your state treasurer's office. So we have a state treasurer in Kansas that runs the Kansas ABLE program, and we have a state treasurer in Missouri that runs the Missouri ABLE program, or called MoABLE. And we'll talk about some of the differences between Kansas and Missouri because there's a couple different nuances about those particular programs. So after we passed it federally, we moved to the states. And the first ABLE account launched on June 1st, 2016 in the great state of Ohio. And since then, more states came online to open up ABLE programs. So we have 46 states and the District of Columbia that offer programs. Again, Kansas, Missouri, and Casey probably will echo me on this. You want to always look at your in-state ABLE program first because I'm going to talk to you about some of the tax benefits you have by opening up an ABLE account in Kansas if you're a Kansas resident, Missouri if you're a Missouri resident. To date, and this is national data, since that first ABLE account opened, we have almost 160,000 ABLE accounts. It's so great to see some of those counted in this room. And across those 160,000 ABLE accounts, get this, we have $1.55 billion in assets under management. I'm sure so many of you, when you were born, were told you can't put any money in your loved one's name. Well, now you can because you're not going to jeopardize their Medicaid ever by having an ABLE account. I always say this $1.55 billion, in case you back me up, this already existed. It was under the mattress. It was in a sibling's name. It wasn't in the person with the disability's name. And now we have equity for individuals with disabilities to be able to save for the future. Just a couple of ABLE account key benefits here. ABLE accounts, and we'll get into this here a little bit more in detail, have multiple functions for short-term spending and long-term savings. How many of you are familiar or have a 529? ABLE accounts are 529As, or ABLE accounts. So the actual legislation that landed on President Obama's desk actually amended the tax code for people with disabilities to have ABLE accounts or 529s. So you're going to see a lot of those similar functions if you have 529s and have worked with that program for the ABLE accounts, with the few exceptions, mainly being that an ABLE account is meant to be utilized over the life of an individual with a disability. And working with your financial advisors or working with your support team for your loved one, you can make really good strategic decisions on how you utilize that ABLE account throughout that person's daily life or long-term financial journey. One of the things, and I love that we have like probably 10 people that already have ABLE accounts in the room that I like to talk about. How many of you have heard of the term spin down? So with SSI, and we probably don't have enough time, and Casey probably touched a little bit on this earlier today. With SSI, you have to spin down that money that you get after the child or after the adult turns 18 because you need to continue receiving that SSI. ABLE is a perfect tool for you if you already have one or you're getting ready to start one to think about how does your SSI spin down be able to contribute to your ABLE account on that monthly basis. I hear horror stories all the time. I'm sure folks that are in our world do all the time, that people with disabilities are going out and being forced to buy TVs. I heard a story from an advocate, a self-advocate, a couple of months ago from New York, who bought her entire family with her SSI money Harry Styles tickets. Think about ABLE as in a way to have that alternative to a spin down so you can actually save that money and not waste it on a monthly basis.
Can you put the whole thing in there?
The whole SSI? Yes, and we're going to get into the contribution limits on how much total in a calendar year you can put into your ABLE account, but yes, you could put the whole amount on a monthly basis into your ABLE account.
Thank you.
A great question. Ownership. When we started drafting that legislation in 2006, 2007, one of the things that was really important for us as advocates was that the account owner of the ABLE account is actually the person with a disability. That was unique. And from a self-determination perspective, we were really excited to be able to have Patty here, who has an ABLE account. I know because I sat across the kitchen table from her and helped her open it up many years ago. That's Patty's account. She's the account holder. So that's very important too. We'll get into easy to use and tax benefits here momentarily. Who is eligible? The disability onset has to occur before age 26. Now, our population, and we're here in the halls of Down Syndrome Innovations, and you're here because you're a Down syndrome advocate, 100% of people with Down syndrome qualify for an ABLE account because you're born with Down syndrome. So we can kind of go on from there and hit the next slide. How do you find out about your ABLE program, Missouri and Kansas? I serve as a senior advisor with ABLE Today, which is the ABLE education and outreach arm of the National Association of State Treasurers. We work with programs all across the country to provide free training and free awareness, kind of like what we're doing here today. You can go to abletoday.org and we have all of the programs listed, or you can just go on to Kansas ABLE here and learn about the Kansas ABLE program. You'll have here, and I'm sorry these slides aren't a little bit bigger, but we can certainly, and I have brochures in the back too on Kansas's program. You can go on, you can learn about the program, you can enroll directly through the website, and you can learn about what Kansas has to offer. The unique part about, again, the different state programs are there's tax state incentives. So if you're a Kansas resident, our state tax deduction on a calendar year basis is $3,000 if you're an individual and $6,000 if you're married, filing your taxes jointly. That is a great tax benefit for somebody to access and contribute to an ABLE account. Missouri's program, and again, Missouri's program is called MoABLE, and you can go on the MoABLE website to learn more about Missouri's particular program. Also offers a tax incentive or tax deduction, And Missouri's is actually quite larger than Kansas. It's 8,000 single, 16,000 if you're married filing jointly. And I'll tell you, one of the reasons why their state law was so great, and Missouri on the other side of the state line, is because the state treasurer at the time, Eric Schmidt, who's now the junior senator of Missouri, was the state treasurer, and his son, who happens to have autism, was the first ABLE account holder in Missouri. And obviously very passionate and really worked hard with the Missouri legislature to make the Mo ABLE program a very attractive program for Missouri residents. I know Casey works very closely with a lot of our Missouri families to also learn about Missouri ABLE. So how do you use your ABLE account? You can put money in, and you can utilize the ABLE account on a daily basis for what we call disability qualified expenses. When we worked on the legislation, again, many years ago, our intent was to allow individuals with disabilities to have all the flexibility possible to utilize the funds that you save in an ABLE account for expenses related to the disability. So you see up here on the screen, housing, health, wellness, assistive technology, education, job coaching, disability sports, legal, financial advice. The list goes on and on and on. These categories are extremely broad. As long as you can correlate an expense that improves the quality of life of an individual with disability, and it's legal, not illegal, you can pretty much use your ABLE account for those expenses. The average ABLE account size right now, I talked about $1.55 billion in assets under management and the number of accounts, but the average ABLE account size as we sit here today is $10,000. So a lot of individuals and families are utilizing their ABLE account similar to an HSA, maybe funding rent, paying to go to that Special Olympics meet, paying for that gym membership, paying for an iPad. We won't even get into it because we don't have enough time. We have a huge workforce crisis in the state of Kansas. We have a lot of families that are paying their own caregiver or somebody to come over and do some respite. Before I go on to the next slide, Patty, can you stand up and tell everyone how you use your ABLE account? Where do you work?
Savings.
Savings? Where do you work?
I work at Hand House for 18 years.
18 years? And what did you do when we set up your ABLE account with your paycheck?
Paycheck.
You get a paycheck twice a month.
Paycheck once a month.
We filled out your payroll deduction form because all of the ABLE accounts come with a free payroll deduction form, and you took that to your boss, and now you direct deposit your paycheck directly into your ABLE account. Mm-hmm. That pretty cool? Yeah. So Patty is using it to save for her future, and I'm sure Mom can talk to you too about P squared. This is Big Patty and Little Patty. P squared senior can talk to you about why that is so important to be able to save for little Patty's future. And right now, Patty is saving her paycheck. You've grown your ABLE account to a pretty good size since 2017 when we opened it. And she's not utilizing the account for those daily expenses yet, but in the future, that is probably a good possibility.
Paper rent.
Yeah, I was just talking to my friend Haley back here too, who has her own business, about all the money that she's making could also count toward your annual contribution limit. So let's talk about how much, to this great question, how much you can save into an ABLE account. And I'm going to talk about it in the basis of a calendar year. So January 1st through December 31st, you can contribute $18,000 annually. Now that $18,000 can come from anywhere, any source. It could come from grandma, grandpa, neighbor, a birthday. It could come from a scholarship you receive that comes into an ABLE account, anywhere. This amount was just increased from $17,000 to $18,000 in 2024 because we learned something way back when about those archaic SSI limitations that never get adjusted by the United States Congress. We said we need to increase this, and so we attached this to the gift tax rule. So anytime you see the gift tax rule go up, annual contributions on ABLE accounts go up. So we started at $14,000, we're now at $18,000. That's awesome. Now, Patty, Haley, and any other of our adults with Down syndrome or who are working can contribute an extra $13,590 a year out of their paycheck into their ABLE account. We passed legislation in 2017 in that massive tax package that you probably read about that is called Able to Work. And so we wanted to create a new incentive for our adults who are working to be able to save more money and put their paycheck away for the future. So we have a number of individuals that are taking advantage of that. So those are the contribution limits. Let's talk about, on the right side of your screen, the lifetime size of an ABLE account. Yes.
Does that limit increases, like the annual limit is increased?
That's a great question. Yes, because we also learned something from gift tax. This is tied to the federal poverty line. So if the federal poverty line goes up, Able to Work goes up too. Now, I don't want to get too wonky, but these tax provisions, because everything's political, are set to sunset in the next couple of years. So we're working at the federal level to either extend these or make these permanent. We have really great national data that these are working. Another provision that we passed in this same time frame allows for individuals who maybe get that diagnosis of disability a little later in life. That typically doesn't happen with the Down syndrome community. You can roll over your traditional 529 into an ABLE account without any penalty. Now, we're dealing with this in Minnesota. You still have to abide by the annual limit. So if you have $40,000 in a 529 and you want to roll it over, you're going to have to do it in waves, unfortunately. But again, we'll fix that sooner rather than later. Total account size. Kansas, Missouri, 475 in Kansas, 550 in Missouri. This is awesome because, again, ABLE is a short-term spending, long-term savings account, and it's supposed to kind of work in 3-in-1. This is a long time before you get to this lifetime cap. If you're an individual who's saving for a home or modifying a vehicle, once you spend the $200,000 to buy a home down the street in Mission for your loved one, or for little Patty buys her $200 or $200,000 home, you're back up to savings. So you go from 475 to 275. What you purchase out of your ABLE account doesn't count toward this. It's just once the account reaches that, that's where you're kind of cut off. These limits, and one of the reasons they're different is because they're attached to the 529 limits in Kansas and Missouri. I believe Kansas just increased its 529 limit like last year, another $40,000, $50,000. So again, our legislators obviously look at this over time.
They were 100,000 for a long time. When did they jump so much? Is it just this year?
So I'm going to get to that question. And I'll jump to this slide. So it's not $100,000. There are two special benefits rules with ABLE on the screen. The first one, if you have an ABLE account and you're on SSI, I call this the SSI threshold. So once the ABLE account reaches $100,000 and you're receiving SSI, you do not become ineligible for SSI. Your monthly check is just suspended. And it's up to you as the individual in the family to decide, are you saving up for college? Are you saving up for a home or a big expense? And you need to go over that. And then once you purchase that expense and it goes down, that SSI check is reinstated. So this is the SSI threshold. Back to that kitchen table conversation, when we started working on ABLE in 2006, The whole crux of ABLE was never to put somebody's health care in jeopardy, their Medicaid. That was the big thing. We never wanted to take away Medicaid. And so as long as you have an ABLE account and those assets, those monies are in the ABLE account, you never lose your health care. And that's really, really the important part of ABLE. ABLE is an asset shield to allow you to remain on Medicaid. We are honored to partner with DSI and so many organizations here in the Kansas City area and around the state. Last November, we launched a new partnership with the Secretary of KDADS, which is our Disability and Aging Department, along with Treasurer Johnson, if you're a Kansas resident, to provide ABLE scholarships to individuals with intellectual and developmental disabilities that are on the wait list. In Kansas, unfortunately, this is also a huge advocacy issue that we're tackling through the leadership and through our team at the Kansas Council on Developmental Disabilities. We're going to be working with Sarah and Amanda and Jason to provide more ABLE education throughout the year and hopefully host one of our roadshow sites here. And there's going to be an incentive. So if you don't have an ABLE account yet and you're on the IDD wait list, we're going to be offering scholarships if you come access a training. Sarah, we could probably count this as a training for those individuals to help you get started. One of the biggest peaks or spikes, I should say, that we saw for folks accessing and opening up ABLE accounts was actually during the stimulus, when so many individuals with disabilities received that $1,000, $2,000, and we worked with so many families to deposit those stimuluses into the ABLE accounts. And we're hoping with this new partnership, this will grow the ABLE program across the state of Kansas. We're hoping that this kind of takes a good turn and becomes a proof of concept for other states to also work. This is our team, myself and Allison from the council, and then we're working with Tom, who wish he could have been here with me to co-present, but he's on a well-deserved vacation, and then Key Wilkins, who's our new program administrator for the roadshow. Last thing, my email is very easy. It's Sarah without an H at kcdd.org. And my cell phone is up here. Please get in touch with me. As you can probably tell, I'm very, very passionate about ABLE. I think it's a game changer for individuals with Down syndrome and families. And happy to answer any questions, talk through any scenarios. Throughout the course of this time, I think we all become benefits experts, so I can talk to you about how SSI works with your ABLE account and other benefits. Thank you, thank you, thank you.